So I felt called to make a video this evening. Not sure yet if this is to be published now or later. In any case, it will be relevant to whoever this needs to reach and at whatever point in time. So you might be able to hear and perhaps see from my attire that I am in the midst of a vocal journey that is, yes, related to fatigue and to vocal strain. And I just want to explain a little bit about the ways in which your voice can change as a result of kind of energetic shifts, symptomatic changes through direct health problems, but then also through your kind of mental state, and the changes that occur in these various planes, not limited to, but mainly focusing on these three, do lead to physiological changes in the voice, ones that can be observed kind of on a somatic level, tuning into your kind of physical awareness and noticing shifts. Most obviously right now, as you might be able to pick up on whether you know me or not, there's a clear audible disruption happening for me right now. The main reason for which is my sinuses being blocked. So at the moment, the quality, the vocal quality, is very throat centered, in the respect that there's a physical restriction to my chest cavity. My breathing capacity has been reduced because I've kind of had a bit of a viral infection, and my strength in my lungs has reduced over the last week. So I'm really breathing less from the diaphragm and from the belly, and much more shallow, in a shallow way, from the chest, which in turn has kind of led to a tightening around the head, neck and shoulders. And because this originated in the throat, as far as a kind of an initial irritation, dryness, kind of pain is concerned, the emphasis has really been around this area. So there's continued to be tension up the back and all the way around the skull as well, and the kind of subsequent impact of that is that it begins to affect all the musculature around the face. So it sounds perhaps like an exaggeration of, just a little cold, but something that you become so much more aware of when you're using your instrument all the time. You are kind of somatically checking in a lot more regularly. So the slightest change in your kind of energy body or your emotional state or your kind of physicality, excuse me, immediately becomes noted. And yes, in relation to the origin of this particular problem that I'm reflecting on right now, I think it's kind of gone between two possibilities of it being simply a physical cold, and then the question of it perhaps being an energetic one, and that the reflection of that has been not so much to do with how it began, but in how the body has been able to deal with it and fight and have that resilience since, and with a particular focus on the respiratory system and the vocal cords, and how that is progressing in a journey of time. Like, okay, so does this feel like it's actually in the realm of physical purely, or if it's something else and something deeper? And I'd say, so this is now day 8, and my voice is a lot more fatigued than it was initially, and my sinuses have gone from being kind of, well, completely congested and blocked like you would be with a cold, but then to just a kind of like a band of tension, kind of more similar to the symptoms of sinusitis, which is kind of leading me to think that it's more of a kind of, my energetic system is just down, my immune system is suppressed at the moment, so this is the kind of reaction. But the effect on the voice is curious, because it's the combination of the body's wisdom and what it requires actually to heal, which is of course rest, recuperation, which most efficiently comes during your hours of sleep, but then, with an emphasis here, the ideal thing would be to reduce your vocal use, in a performative sense, certainly, but then also just on a daily level speaking, reduce it right down, so that you're not creating additional strain, and that you're not exhausting your system. But then also in terms of your energy output, it's not particularly conducive to rapid healing if you're expanding and not finding adequate space to really be centered and just kind of let the body do what it needs to do. But my personal circumstances in the last week and a half have been involved with being responsible for lots of young people and in a kind of educational supportive role, and that has meant that I've really needed to use my voice in a very active way, be very present, very engaged, very embodied. I've also been doing a lot of physical work, so now the voice is really bearing the brunt of this. Like, it feels heavy. It actually, like, to use it, it's kind of that awareness of the whole body as an instrument really is like becomes really emphasized at this point, when you're kind of like, oh, like what's naturally possible usually in terms of your breath capacity, and in terms of how you phrase things, and just in your impulse to communicate, all of these reflexes, suddenly when there's a restriction there, or a kind of disruption in your system, it's like, everything is much more truncated, and you're really kind of having to work, and everything becomes fragmented, so all the different elements involved in your communication process become much more cognitive, and therefore, like, not quite dissonant, but there is a delay, and that's almost what I hear as a reflection in the voice, is that there's this kind of like a dragging kind of feeling, and yeah, so it sounds like I've just been on a bit of a rant and a moan about the trials of having a tickle, but I just wanted to share a little more insight into kind of the different processes that you can begin to become aware of in reflecting in your own vocal health, very broadly speaking, and in that way being able to identify aspects which you're going to know yourself, the areas where you need a little more focused, attentive healing, and also rest, never to be underestimated. And sometimes a period of silence is really what the body is craving on very, very many levels. Yeah, so until the next installation, I hope to speak to you then. Take care.